Now, from Wish TV, your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. Indiana could soon join other states in redrawing congressional districts to help Republicans in next year's midterm elections. Vice President JD Vance visited Indiana on Tuesday and discussed the matter with Governor Mike Braun and other Republican state leaders. The meeting was met with protests inside the State House. News 8's Kyla Russell reports.
The vice president met with lawmakers for about 40 minutes to an hour in the office behind me. It's important to note, though, that there was a black curtain covering the door and that the meeting was closed, which means we did not get any public appearance from the vice president. Now, I was able to catch a glimpse of him as he was leaving the building in the basement of the State House. I wasn't allowed to ask any questions, though. This is the only view we got of the vice president as he left his meeting with Braun and other top lawmakers. Though he didn't answer questions, I was able to ask Governor Braun what they talked about in the meeting. Did you talk about redistricting?
We did.
In a statement after the meeting, he said they spoke about a range of issues. And during the meeting, roaring boos could be heard from the State House rotunda. That's where Democratic politicians and protesters gathered to fight against Braun and Vance's redistricting efforts, aimed at upping the number of Republican U.S. House seats from Indiana in Congress.
They gerrymandered the maps. They have 7 of the 9 congressional seats are held by Republicans. Now you have a president saying that's not enough. We want, like, I don't know, 8 out of 9, 9 out of 9. I don't know what their goal is.
One of the dangers of gerrymandering is that if the maps do not accurately represent the people in that district, then they will not be represented by their congressional representative or U.S. Senate representative or even here in our own Indiana State House.
Indiana's 2 Democratic U.S. House members, Frank Mervin and Andre Carson, both expressed their frustrations today.
We will not accept our state being cut and spliced and maneuvered for a wannabe king and Donald Trump.
That this battle is about their representation also. So that union member that's worried about their health care coverage, the steelworker, those teachers that are really concerned about defunding education, the community and law enforcement, my message is come fight with me to make sure that you are represented and your voice is heard in Washington, D.C.
Mervin said he would still run for a seat if redistricting impacts him. State Senator Fatty Cadora said he planned to reintroduce legislation to end gerrymandering. Now, it's unclear what could come of this meeting today. I also reached out to some of the Republicans that were in that meeting and some that were not. None of them wanted to go on camera with me. Another thing to note is we know that JD Vance left the State House and went to a fundraiser where he raised just shy of $1 million for the Republican Party. Reporting here at the State House, I'm Kyla Russell for Wish TV and WishTV.com.
Indiana House Speaker Todd Houston wouldn't go on camera after that meeting, but released this statement saying, I appreciate the opportunity to meet with Vice President Vance today and share many of the successes we're experiencing in Indiana. We've been proud to work alongside the Trump administration on several issues to strengthen our state and nation. We had a meaningful discussion, heard the vice president's perspective on a number of topics, and will continue conversations as we work to advance Indiana and deliver results for Hoosiers. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith said this on X. A big thank you to Vice President JD Vance for visiting the Hoosier state today and standing shoulder to shoulder with Indiana lawmakers. Your bold leadership and unwavering support for President Trump's mission to expand the conservative majority in Congress is exactly what America needs right now. Redistricting isn't just politics, it's about ensuring the voice of we the people is heard loud and clear. Indiana is proud to play a key role in shaping a stronger, freer future for our nation, and as Lieutenant Governor, I fully support this effort. Well, President Donald Trump has enacted a new wave of tariffs on dozens of American trading partners. Rates vary substantially depending on the country. Trump has imposed an additional 25% tariff on India. The additional tariff follows Trump's previous 25% tariff on Indian imports. The White House calls the new tariffs a necessary and appropriate punishment for India's imports of Russian oil. It's the president's first use of so-called secondary sanctions on countries the U.S. says are fueling Moscow's war machine. Earlier this week, former Indianapolis Mayor Greg Ballard told me that is concerning. Listen.
India, I think, is the big one, is the one I'm mostly concerned about. I don't think China's ever going to stop buying from Russia, but as I and a few others like to say, Russia is an oil company with an army. I mean, without oil and gas exports, they're essentially nothing. It's half their revenue. India, I'm way more concerned about India because I think in 30 years, India is the linchpin country in the world. Are they going to be democratic? Are they going to be authoritarian? Right now, they're the largest democracy in the world, but they're getting closer to Russia, and now we're at a point where we're going to punish India for buying oil that they need from Russia.
Right.
It's very problematic, and because we have been, in my opinion, asleep at the wheel for the last 20 years regarding Russia, all of a sudden now we're going to punish India, who I think is going to be absolutely critical to the future of the world.
How much of an impact and how much will tariffs cost Americans?
Inflation's already there. I mean, that's why he can't get the interest rate. He wants the interest rate down, but obviously the economy has been slowed down because of it. Hiring has been slowed down because of all of this. It may be subtle on some level, but people who are out there buying groceries right now do not think it's so subtle. Yeah. People who can't find a job because of the uncertainty by small business, they don't think it's, I mean, this is a bad situation right now. It's not massive. It's not like the Depression or anything like that, but it's around the edges. This is pretty bad.
Coming up, an IT-made investigation leads to statewide system change. How a victim's story made it all the way to Governor Braun's desk. We're back now with an IT-made investigation that has now led to statewide changes. It's an effort to protect victims across Indiana. IT-Mate's Tim Spears shows us how one woman's story made its way to the governor's office and quickly led to action.
I talked to Kimber Emonette about her lack of options once the man who victimized her as a child was released from prison. It was her own father. Now, Kimber sharing her story with IT-Mate has led to the Braun administration to change the way Indiana communicates with crime victims so they can take steps to protect themselves.
Finally, I mean, it's good that it's happened. It's a start for everyone else.
Kimber Emonette knew one day the man who abused her as a child, her father, would be released from prison. She did not know she would have to face him at her job 2 days in a row, or that a police officer would tell her there is nothing to stop him.
It was overwhelming. It felt like the system failed me.
Daniel Kelly committed monstrous crimes against Kimber and her sisters more than 30 years ago. Sentenced 72 years in prison for child molesting. Kimber believes the trauma Kelly inflicted on them led to her sisters' struggles with substance abuse, ending in both of their deaths.
He's a threat to society.
Released early for good behavior, there was nothing stopping Kelly from haunting Kimber at work because she did not have a court order to keep him away.
Going through so much anxiety and having to feel like that you've been re-victimized, like it's not fair.
IT-Mate took Kimber's story directly to the governor's office. In just weeks, the Braun administration made a change to protect survivors. Texting potentially life-saving information. What's your hope?
That no one has to go through this, having to feel like you have questions unanswered.
The Indiana Department of Corrections sends emails and texts to victims of crime like Kimber through the statewide automated Victim Information Notification, or SAVIN program. It's a free service to notify victims of an offender's change of status, including their release from prison. Now, when an offender is released, planned to be released, or escapes, text updates to registered victims include: civil protection orders are available for situations involving domestic or family violence, sexual assault, stalking, harassment, or child sex grooming, and then provide a link with the first steps to take. Email updates have already included this information, but it will now be sent straight to survivors' phones.
I think it's wonderful. Any resources or information that can go out to victims or survivors in advance to know how to obtain this information is key to keeping them safe.
Laura Berry is the executive director of the Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence. The organization offers support for victims to file for protective orders. The order bars contact. If violated, it could lead to criminal charges.
So a protective order basically is preventing future violence.
This text can help victims start the process to file for protective orders before an offender is even released from prison. Timing, Laura says, can be crucial.
Because oftentimes when an offender is released from custody, you don't know where they're going. And one of the key components of a civil order of protection is there needs to be a reliable address to serve that order of protection.
Could this save a life?
Absolutely. Any additional information that's provided to survivors about how to keep them safe when an offender is being released is critical.
I've talked to a couple different victims advocacy groups. They believe this change could save lives. How does that make you feel?
That it's amazing.
And thinking of her sisters, Kimber knows she's made them proud by keeping others safe.
I hope that everyone else from here on will be able to get the resources that they can to get their protective orders.
You just want people to have a chance to protect themselves.
Yes. It's not fair for anyone to have to go through that.
After IT Mate first reported on Kimber's story, Daniel Kelly violated parole. Found guilty of possessing obscene materials and violating his GPS monitoring. He's now in prison till 2028. Kimber hopes in the meantime this change can also open a conversation about other options to protect survivors like herself. In studio, Tim Spears for Wish TV and WishTV.com.
All right, coming up, the vice president's visit. Indiana's best political team discusses the possibility of redistricting here in Indiana after the break. All right, welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Republican Tom John, Democrat Lindsay Haake. Good to see you both. We'll start with the big story that we talked about at the top of the show. Vice President JD Vance visiting Indiana. We're told, and the governor admitted to this, they did have conversations about possibly redistricting here in Indiana. So, Tom, I want to start with you. Should the governor consider this, and should he call a special session to redraw maybe a congressional map?
I mean, anytime the vice president or president comes and asks you for something, you should consider it, right? But I think there are a lot of considerations to it. One is it's going to cost you $500,000 to $1 million to do it. That's
because of the special session.
Because of the special session, the cost of doing that. Also, you have the considerations, frankly, of once you have a special session, you can talk about anything. Mm-hmm. And so that as a governor who's setting his term, setting things forward for the future and his strategy, do you want that extra noise getting in the way of what you're trying to do? But then finally, frankly, from a political standpoint, votes have to come from somewhere. I think it's probably the 1st District in Northwest Indiana you're looking at if you're trying to do a redistricting. And that means that you potentially make the 4th District with Congressman Baird or the 2nd District with Congressman Haake more in play in the wrong environment. Do you really want to mess with good enough when you've got 7 seats right now?
Right. Well, we'll see. Is there anything Democrats can do, Lindsay, to stop this?
I'm not necessarily sure if that's the question that should be asked, frankly, with all due respect, only because we've got a super minority at the State House with the Democrats and in both chambers, right? So I don't know if it's necessarily what Democrats are seeking to do in this case. I think it's what we need to do in interest of good government and good policy for Indiana at the legislature. And that has not necessarily got a D or an R hat on. And you've got a lot of folks at the legislature, legislators, policy folks, outside in the lobby and inside the State House or inside the chamber who are dedicated to making sure that good redistricting policy is on the books. I know that from my experience working in 2011 with the redistricting and 2021 redistricting. This would be my 3rd cycle. But I'll also tell you that working on redistricting outside of the decennial schedule is suspect at best. That tells me that partisan gain is at the top of the considerations versus adequate representation that would be within those constraints outlined by the Constitution.
Would you go as far to say that this is an attempt to silence democracy?
I do think so. Yes, absolutely. This is outside of the schedule. It would absolutely put into the frame of mind for those districts that we're talking about, whether the efficacy of the first district or whomever's district is at hand. This would be outside of that norm that you would have that's outlined already in our guiding documents, telling me that you're going to have partisan gain.
There is some question. There's a 1995 AG opinion, I think, that would suggest this may not be authorized. AG's opinions don't have necessarily legal authority, but it's there. And there is some question of how it looks. Now, the flip side is California is talking about it. That's obviously from a Democrat perspective. You know, I'll take this back to the U.S. Senate, right? The Democrats said, okay, we don't think we need filibusters anymore for judges. Right. How has that gone for them, right? Because once you go down that road, now you've opened Pandora's box. So I think that's a cautionary tale for Republicans, is less so about how they're perceived and more so about once you go down that road, you open up questions as to what is appropriate in government and really what people will accept and believe in, because now everything's on the table.
Go ahead, Lindsay. I see you
shaking
your head in agreement there.
Well, we find commonalities.
Yeah,
that's what we do at the legislature. We work in this space where we're used to being, well, not always on the opposite side of things, which is a weird place for a DNR to be. Many people think we're just automatically on opposite sides. No, I think that's the issue here. We need to find commonality. If there is indeed a question that must be answered with the redistricting conversation in order to have the governor call us into, that's an extraordinary effort to throw the legislature into session outside of the normal schedule. That is a lot. That doesn't happen very often. And so I don't even know when the last session, special session was, of course, because of the abortion issues in 2022. That said, before that, it was really, I think, 2008 that we had a special session, if I remember correctly. So it's not a normal thing. And so if that is going to be the case, you will seek, and Tom already alluded to this, because we all have things we need to do at the legislative session.
Right.
This is not just the only issue that might be of topic, and they have no control in the governor's office of what would happen during the legislative conversations on the third floor.
Right.
You can file a bill on anything. No one's going to stop that, and that in itself is a risk, and that is where we
And not only is it a risk when you're talking politically, but also, Tom, as you mentioned, and I guess this could also be political as well, you're looking at an administration that's talked about, cutting the budget, and there will be a financial factor too.
And there is a financial, and certainly I think the legislative's probably $1.5 million, but then you have to think about the state police and potentially other police forces. They'll have to worry about security, because I would expect this to be a bit of a hot button issue.
Right.
And a national issue. Look at Texas, look at California, look at other places the discussion's happening. This won't happen in a vacuum, for sure.
And it's not every day you see Indiana politicians, D or R, on national news talking about the Indiana legislature. That's just not a normal thing. And so when you do see that, you obviously see that there's national interest in this. It has become, there were death threats of the Illinois legislators, or I apologize, the Texas legislators who were in Illinois. This is a heightened political time, and it's also becoming a heightened environment in terms of political violence.
Okay, I have about a minute left, so I want to get an answer from both of you. Do you think we go down this route here in Indiana? Quickly.
Me?
Go ahead, Tom.
I think probably not. At the end of the day, I think we're at 7-2. There are places to go look that don't have, A, the significant risks that I think there are in redrawing districts here, and B, just the bad timing with regard to how you get it done and how you move forward and what the possible outcome or possibility of a benefit is.
Lindsay, 30 seconds, close us out.
I think you've got so many good government folks ready to just throw this issue right under the bus, in that it's just too politically convenient for the Republicans to give Donald Trump what he wants in having one extra seat out of Indiana. It's 7-2. That is enough. Let it go. Move forward. I have no Gordon Gekko in my thoughts for the governor's office, but I know it acts like that sometimes, and it needs to just go under the rug, and let's forget about it.
So you're a no. You don't think it's going to happen?
I don't think so.
Okay, we'll see. All right.
And give him credit later for it.
I will.
Good to see you both. Thank you very much. Much more to come. Stick around. We'll be right back. All right, thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30, and be sure to check out the All Indiana Politics podcast online at wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend.